Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan of the Motor City Madmouth. Pleased to be joined by my co-host George Eichhorn and Rod Peterson. Welcome aboard, guys.
Merry Christmas to all. Hi,
Yes,
George.
happy to be here. Hi, Rod. Hi, Scott.
Happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, happy New Year, and happy
And
birthday to
Kwanzaa.
myself for that matter on the
Today?
29th. No, the
No,
29th.
It's not the 29th yet, Scott, so
Yeah, but we won't be doing a show on the 29th. I'll probably be in Orlando as Candy and I figured we're already applied for the Miami Iowa State game, so we'll see what happens when we get there. The title of the show is the Buffalo Bills are thriving and the Buffalo Sabres are nosediving. Look at that! What a title
mm,
we have! And since
mm.
Mr. Eichhorn was at the game, the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, back-to-back 40-point games. They defeated the Detroit Lions 48-42. Of course, the Lions had a fair amount of injuries, and Dan Campbell decided to take the plunge and went for what was it, a onside kick with 12 minutes? I can only imagine there.
Yeah.
And then the Sabres and coach Lindy Ruff are on an 11-game losing streak, which prompted owner Terry Pagula to talk to the team in Montreal. What good did it do them? Canadians crushed Buffalo 6-1 on Tuesday. All right, Ron, let's try to get a handle of what's going on with the Sabres.
well, nobody knows, and I can guarantee you they don't know. And I can't wait to get George's assessment of the crazy Bills game, Bills Lions game. But as far as the Sabres go, I've got them ranked as the 32nd team in the NHL, and there are only 32 teams. You said it very well, Scott. The owner Terry Pagula flies into Montreal to meet with the team. Have you ever heard, gentlemen, of a player's owner meeting? I haven't,
I
and I
haven't.
will. No, and I've been
No.
in this for decades. And by the way, what came out of that meeting was, I don't know who spoke to the media or whatever, but the resounding message was that we decided that the answers to our problems are in this room. And as you said, Scott, then they promptly went out and got thumped 6-1 in Montreal, their 11th consecutive loss. You know what that is? Desperate times call for desperate measures, right? And so when the owner flies in, guys, it's the end of the line. It's rock bottom. And then you hit another level below rock bottom. That's where the Sabres are. Because now, if the owner had that meeting, what do you do now? I guarantee you, I don't know. Maybe you guys know. They clearly don't know.
Well, you bring in Lindy Ruff thinking he was a savior to the franchise, and Lindy can do everything but play the game, and we know he's an icon in that franchise since they've been obviously struggling for the last 9 zillion years. But George, I don't know. This is a really weird one with the Sabres.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And I Buffalo is such a good hockey town, and you know this, Rod and Scott. I mean, they've had so many losing seasons, and to me, it just is kind of unsettling. Now, I know they're not part of the original six, but they're in that next grouping I call. And so they are now sitting in a situation, much as the Detroit Red Wings, not making the playoffs year after year after year. And last I looked, they're only 4 points behind the Red Wings. So despite the fact that they are number 8 in the division, the Atlantic, they're only 4 points behind Detroit, which kind of tell you a little bit as to how much the Red Wing fans have been suffering this year as well. But nothing like this, nothing like 11-game losing streak. I mean, it is. It's a good franchise. I mean, they had Scotty Bowman there one time for crying out loud, and they, oh my God, the players they've had, and it is a very different situation. I got to agree with Rod. For the owner to come in and then you lay another egg, you lost again. You got whipped by Montreal, not one of the best teams in the league by any stretch. The Canadiens, and this happened. So you can't fire all the players. They're gonna have to make choices and make some decisions in the coaching rank. It's just a shame.
Yeah, what else can you say? I mean, the Sabres have been a team that the only thing that's ever exciting that ever happened to them was they made one appearance in the Stanley Cup final. And if I remember right, correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Didn't they beat the Soviet Wings many years ago and they scored a lot of goals to beat them?
Ah, and an exhibition game, which doesn't mean anything, but that
Well, it
Stanley Cup
means
appearance,
everything. What are you talking about? Hey,
yeah,
you're looking for some positives here, Rod.
you're
Positive.
looking you're looking a long ways back and digging really deep to find some positives for the Buffalo Sabres. And God bless you for doing so. But you guys have both brought up Lindy Ruff. Fantastic hockey man in his second tour of duty with the Sabres.
Yeah.
And after Sunday night's loss in Toronto, he goes, I have never seen anything this bad. And he goes, this is on me to fix. And it's like, God bless you, Lindy. No, it's not. Because there's a lot of people that haven't been able to fix this. And I heard an interview with Jeff Skinner in the summertime, who's now with the Edmonton Oilers, but had been with Buffalo. And he said, I feel bad for all the coaches that have been fired there because we as the players were at fault. It's on the players. And I've watched Buffalo when they come through Sunrise. They haven't yet this year, I don't think, but I saw them last year, and it's mostly the same guys. And it's the second something goes wrong in the game, they pack their tents. They're just emotionally fragile. They don't trust each other. There's talent there, but they're incredibly young. They're not mature. And I don't know. I'm with Lindy. Like, I don't even know where you would start.
It's
a puzzling situation. All right. Well, we'll give George his Lions Bills reference. What did you see that day? Is that the Josh Allen, to me, has proven why he is an elite quarterback. I think he had as many as 6 touchdowns in this game, if I remember right. But the Buffalo Bills, Jim Nantz hyped him up, and they certainly lived up to their billing. I think this team is a legitimate threat to get to the Super Bowl.
I think so too. I really do. I mean, Detroit was just blindsided. Let's face it. I mean, Campbell, you talk about coaches who said after the game, it's on me. There was another line that Dan Campbell used, of course, seeing the Lions go down. And don't get fooled by that score, because we know a lot of those touchdowns for Detroit came late in the game when the game was already out of reach. But the fact of the matter is Josh Allen looked fantastic. He fooled the Lions defense. He ran the ball. He passed the ball. He did everything he could. He was like a 3-ring circus all by himself, and some good players, of course, surrounding him. But I tell you what, those injuries, I don't know if they don't want to talk about injuries, but boy, oh boy, the Lions defense sure looked like it was a different unit out there, didn't it? I mean, they were just pathetic. But Josh Allen, I mean, he is now in the driver's seat for the MVP. But more important than that, of course, for the Bills is to try to they got to get past Kansas City, obviously, in the AFC, if they got hopes to repeat a trip against Detroit. That would be in the Super Bowl. But again, there's a lot of football to be played before that happens. But I was very impressed. Scott and Rod, Josh Allen did a fantastic job, and so did the coaching staff in that game.
Well, the Bills. I'm sorry, go ahead, Scott. Sorry.
That's okay, Ron. Keep in mind that Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions in a winning effort, and then threw 5 touchdowns in a losing effort. Go figure. I think he amassed 494 yards. Okay, Rod, go ahead.
You didn't talk about the call yet, the onside kick. I was waiting.
I alluded to it a little bit earlier. It might have been a slight oversight, but go ahead. You can.
No. I want you guys to take. I mean, I was watching the game, and clearly, Scott, you were too. Whoever the announcers were, I don't usually pay attention. But when they went for the onside kick with 12 minutes to go, it was a 10-point game. And even the announcer said, this is an odd time to call for an onside kick. And then, of course, they're checking in. You got to tell the officials now that you're going to perform try to execute an onside kick. And it's like, as a friend of mine said, a learned football man, former quarterbacks coach with the Eagles, Mike Kelly, said, this isn't curling. Why are we telling the other team what we're going to do?
Yeah, right.
So coming out of that game, now the NFL is talking about changing the rule so that it's a surprise. Like, I felt bad for Dan Campbell. Not a good time to do it, but to tell the other team you're going to do it, they didn't have a chance.
Yeah, that rule change has been an absolute farce, that's for sure.
It was a gamble. It was a gamble. He tried to think of a creative way, obviously, for his team to keep the ball, and it backfired miserably. A guy runs back. What, he run it back to the 5 or 6 yard line or something like that? The Buffalo player. And the fact is he said, if I had a chance, I'd do it again. This is gambling Dan Campbell. So nothing surprises me anymore with this guy.
Well, it's all about reputation with Campbell. He did it. He admitted he made a mistake, but then again, he'll make all the mistakes in the world. But remember, this guy was given a 6-year contract so Brad Holmes could give him all the time, knowing that this has been a doormat franchise for a lot of years. and now you bring on Dan the Gambler, and it's no big deal. We'll find a way to win 11 in a row or whatever we're doing. So what? But I give him credit for doing it. It unfortunately led to a touchdown, and Buffalo continued to score relentlessly at will. There we go. All right, well, let's stay in the state of New York, but this time the New York Rangers have lost 11 of their last 14 games and also traded captain Jacob Trouba earlier in December. They currently have a 15-15-1 record and are in sixth place in the Metropolitan Division. What gives in the Big Apple, Rods?
They've very cleverly disguised what a toxic, dysfunctional team they are in a couple of ways. Would you believe they won the President's Trophy last year? I was stunned. I just learned that or was reminded of that last week. Guys, they had the best NHL regular season in the league last year. They went to the Eastern Conference Final against the Florida Panthers. We watched it. A 6-game series. This is not, you wouldn't think from outward appearances, a dysfunctional team. They're in the Eastern Conference 2 years ago, the New York Rangers. But they fired Gerard Gallant a couple of years ago after a first round bowing out in the playoffs. They're dysfunctional. Jacob Trouba, the captain, I think we talked about it on this show, didn't want out. They traded him out anyways. And on his way out the door, he said it's a rite of passage to be fired by MSG. So from outside appearances, it looks like the New York Rangers, the vaunted Rangers. They're not. They're a joke, obviously. And I think they're under the cloak of the dysfunction of the New York Jets and to a certain degree the Giants. You know what I mean? They've been flying under the radar for how bad they are as a franchise. That's my take on that. And they traded Kako this week as well. Outstanding young, what you might think is a cornerstone future of the team. He was benched by the head coach Peter Laviolette, the latest scapegoat, and then traded to the Seattle Kraken. So they're not done yet. They're blowing it up.
All right, you know what? Before we go over to George, according to Front Office Sports, Rod, this came up, and that's why I want to mention it to everybody now. In fact, you know what? No, George, give me your thoughts on the Rangers, and then we'll go to this question by Joshua Dorr.
Well, the Rangers, I put them obviously ahead of the Red Wings as far as talent goes. And like you said, Rod, I mean, this is a team that had the President's Trophy. They've had some really good teams making the conference finals. And how do you lay an egg like this? My goodness. I mean, they're 7-8-1 at home and 8-7 on the road. Okay, I could take the 8-7. But my goodness gracious, they've lost 3 in a row now. They are not doing what they need to do to have a good team and to have a good record, period. I mean, this is just an incredible fold by them so far. Now, the good thing is for all hockey fans, as we know, that it's a long season, and we hear that all the time. So, but now, if these teams want to be good, they better start playing better now. We're getting near the holiday time, near the end of the current year, and then January, of course, and then they got that tournament, and then they got the All-Star game and a lot of interruptions there. But hockey, this is not what I expected. I didn't expect it from the Rangers and a couple other teams, namely Detroit. I didn't expect it from them, but boy, oh boy, yeah, they got to turn things around, and they got to do it quickly. I don't know what's going on over there, but they just are not playing well at all.
Well, we'll also keep in mind that this is a franchise that held out with Igor Shesterkin giving them that long contract. So they've had dysfunction from the beginning, and now it's carrying over to a point where now they're in a bit of trouble. They can't afford a bigger margin of error, knowing that that's a very tough division. Let me tell you, I was watching the Philadelphia Flyers and the Red Wings. We'll talk about the Red Wings a little bit, but the Philadelphia Flyers look like a good team, and I like what John Tortorella is doing with Philadelphia. I really do. So New York's margin of error is very low, let alone in that particular division.
Very low.
But that's it. So when you have you're having a problem contractually with your goaltender, who's unbelievable. Who in their right mind would not want Igor Shesterkin? This guy's unbelievable. He's going to be great in this league for a long time. Got a lot of dysfunction there. So, all right. So I want to get to this point because Joshua Dorr obviously seems to be pressing my buttons because we got something from Front Office Sports. But Joshua Dorr has promised one of these days he'll have the guts to come on a podcast one day if we can get him out of his little cotton picking shell. Okay, because I know that obviously here's a guy who's passionate about hockey, and if he says any stupid things about hockey, there's a quick ban button that I'll blow you out of here, Josh. So don't test me, especially on the last Sports Exchange. So here's the thing, okay? Before we came on air, okay, keep that up there. Question for Rob: what are your thoughts about the Army game, Navy game drawing more views than Stanley Cup Finals? Do you think that that is an embarrassment for hockey?
God, no. It was the 125th installment of the Army Navy game. The president was talking about it. Oh my God. And what other games were on in the middle of an afternoon, 3 p.m. Eastern, which I might add, the game was on ABC. Yeah, no, it was on CBS, whatever, one of the main networks.
CBS, yeah.
In no way, shape, or form do I think that was an embarrassment to hockey. Again, that game's been played longer than there's been a National Hockey League.
Yeah, but what Joshua fails to mention, though, is it outdrew. Joshua, if you're going to put anything up here, we got to make sure, and I'm seeing a little bit more now than the Stanley Cup Finals, if it outdraws Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals, I want to make sure that the whole thing is brought up. Not that that's a different story.
Joshua said it correctly. I didn't repeat it right. It doesn't matter. It's America. It's the Army-Navy game. I don't care if it's the Stanley Cup Final Game 7 or a Saturday afternoon regular season in December. That's my take. I feel like as hockey fans in America, we got to stop getting offended all the time. Right. It is. I don't get offended, by the way. I'm not the type of guy that does.
And the thing I wanted to add too, Scott and Rod, is like you said, I mean, this tradition goes far and away above what we would call a normal viewing audience. Okay. Army, Navy. Okay. And both of those teams happen to be pretty damn good this year, especially Army. And so there's no question that game is going to draw. Now, the other thing you got, and we've talked about it many times before, and when you have a Canadian team in the finals, which we saw with Edmonton and Florida, they still had pretty good numbers for the Stanley Cup ratings. Yes, they could be better, but the fact of the matter is he's comparing apples and oranges, as they say here. So it's two different sports, two different audiences, but I'm sticking with the guns. America's always going to watch Army and Navy, yes.
Yeah, and Josh, I'll go ahead and add, what's an embarrassment to hockey? Okay, here's my thing. It's a Game 7. I don't care about any other game but a Game 7, okay? And you had a very highly competitive series with a lot of drawing power. That's why it's an embarrassment, Josh, okay? You had Connor McDavid. You had a lot of Panthers players. You have Barkov. You have a lot of star power between those two, and that's why it's an embarrassment, because Army, Navy, to me, obviously, to me, we all know about the history of the game, and that's a good debate here. If we're going to have our last Sports Exchange, let's have some fireworks. My goodness. Joshua, you always know how to go out there and have fireworks.
Joshua got a 2-for-1 deal on his fireworks, yeah.
Yeah, there you go, Joshua. So I think the thing that makes it an embarrassment is the star power that you had, and I think the star power that you had between those two teams and Army Navy, knowing that you're playing professional major league hockey versus amateur, that's where I believe, in my opinion, it's an embarrassment. And also, let me point out something else, okay? When we talk about hockey, and I'm not a hater toward hockey, I was brought up with it my whole life. I was brought up with George in an original 6 market, okay?
Yes.
I never hate hockey, but I'm going to say one thing I do detest about it, and I'm saying it from a media standpoint. Anytime the NHL is so stupid and they don't allow everybody to get on their media distribution list to promote it, and they're consistently at the bottom of the popularity of the 4 major sports, I do have a problem with their marketing and their PR department. I make no bones about it. But the problem with Joshua Dorr is he's not in the media. He's nothing more than a darn casual fan is what he is. And he doesn't know the media industry. And that's why this guy needs to understand that you can sit here and yap all you want in the chat room, okay? But the reality of the situation is, if you sat behind a microphone and got out of that chat room, then you know what it's really like to find out what we go through on a daily basis. Joshua, let's see if you have the guts to come in here again in 2025 because your bark is bigger than your bite.
Well, he loves pushing your buttons, and
Oh,
I'm
he
so
does. I
happy.
like when he does too. He's a good kid, but every so often, okay, we know you're not a broadcaster, but boy, you act like one in the chat room, and that's okay because no matter what show you go on, somebody's gonna ball bust you anyway. So
Yeah.
to me, you have your opinion, I have mine, and I own the platform, and you're just a part of this platform where you're just giving me your 2 cents worth.
He's a character. Yes.
Yeah, he's a character.
But
He's a good guy. I've met him. I've known him for a lot of years. He's like a crazy little brother you like to beat up, but you still love the guy anyways.
yeah,
He's a good guy. I like Joshua. He means well, but if you want my opinion why it's an embarrassment, I'll say it one more time, people. Okay. You're talking about star power and the Stanley Cup finals couldn't beat a amateur game, all albeit it's Army Navy. Let me tell you something. We did some stuff. We did a show on the Army Navy game, and we had some really good numbers with our shows as well. And I had a guy on there named Bill Crawford who actually covers Army Navy, and this guy was unbelievable. He really was. Our show obviously is always good because we're hitting a niche market in the hockey industry. But the reality of the situation, we had good numbers because of what it is. But you know what, Joshua? The reality is you know, when you say you don't need to be in the media industry or sit behind a microphone, I'm not a broadcaster. I'll tell you, you'd be a great broadcaster on those FaceTime calls. You ever get in his FaceTime calls? They're the most entertaining things I've ever seen. But I'm okay with a ban for bringing this up. Yeah, you know what, Joshua? It won't matter whether I get rid of you or somebody else does. It won't make a lick of difference because you're going to say the wrong thing to the wrong person. At one point, they're going to blow you out of here anyway. I just like you because I've known you for a while. But that's why I think it's an embarrassment. But it's a good topic where you get both sides, and it's a very spiritable debate, which I'm glad that he did mention it in this particular show. But not sure how I got you right. Oh, because I'm a high energy guy, Josh. I'm not the Motor City mild mouth, Josh. If you read the hat, it's a Motor City mad mouth. That's the way I am generally. Plus, it doesn't hurt. It's my last show of the year. So look at that. Scott just likes to hate hockey when he can. You are so way out of line.
Farthest from the truth.
Yeah, that is
Scott
so far
loves
from
hockey.
the truth. But you know what, Joshua? You could say that I hate hockey when I can. No, not really. Maybe I hate some of the people that are in it, okay, because of the fact that they don't know how to promote their sport to the max. But the sport itself, hey, listen, I played it for a year, and I've been around the wings a long time. I spent a little time with the Panthers, but you're entitled to your opinion, Joshua. Everybody's got opinion. Everybody has, you know what, folks. And in most cases, they all stink anyways. So there you go, Joshua. Take that to the bank in your Tesla.
Yeah.
Okay. If I may add a footnote, yes, save us.
Station break, please, Candy.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book late last year, Lessons from the Microphone, tuning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders. It is written by your host, Scott, the Motor City Mad, not mild mouth, Morganroth. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Apple and Google Books. And George Eichhorn wrote the foreword for it, too. It talks about their 40 plus years in the industry and how it has changed. Old school media versus new school media. Get your copy today, and it's a great gift idea, too. Again, it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Apple, and Google Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can also... There's a link to our merchandise store where you can get great merchandise. And there is some great writings by the 3 fine gentlemen on this broadcast tonight. They've all written on there. So go check out their stories. And you might see a picture or two, maybe. Maybe 1 or 2 by me. You never know. Go see if you can find one.
We will.
If you like to listen to podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. If you want to advertise, call Scott 954-304-4941. If you want to be a guest on the show, Josh, the door is open. Come on, email us. Let us know you want to be a guest on the show, or if you have topic ideas. southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Back to you, Scott.
All right, I'm back on Joshua some more. Everybody needs to get on this guy. NHL is drawing record numbers. I think they're doing all right. Give me the record numbers, Joshua. I don't want to hear the think word, okay? I don't want to hear the think word. Give me the numbers, Joshua. You got time to hit Google. Give me the numbers. Do some research. Do the journalism thing. Yeah, you always send Scott my topic ideas. Yeah, a lot of them are good, and I use a lot of them. So get the numbers, Joshua. We'll open this conversation. But, we're going to take this conversation to Motown because the Detroit Red Wings through 31 games are 13, 14, and 4. What's up in Motown, George?
What's up in Motown? They've won 3 out of their last 4. Hooray! Everybody's excited. Yeah, I mean, most people have been calling for their head coach's neck. Or if not, there's even the few rumblings about maybe Steve Yzerman. But the fact of the matter is Chris Ilitch is not going to want to fire either one of those guys. No, I doubt it in the middle of the season. And they have played better the last 4 games. So that being said, you alluded to it earlier, Scott, that Eastern Conference is hard as heck. You cannot fall behind. And this team was not expected to scramble. They were expected to be right in the thick of things from the get-go. But the problem has been all these scorers they have been sitting on their hands and watching other teams score on them. The defense has been poor, and the offense has been sporadic. Special teams, again, the Wings continue to have problems on the penalty kill and the power play. But all this being said, they obviously did get a little bit of a boost. They beat Toronto, they beat Philadelphia, and recently, and now you're looking at a situation where they've got a bunch of opportunities to try to put a few more wins together. But Patrick Kane is healthy. He was out for a while. Long story short, they got the guys back, most of them. Now there could be another injury to Edvinsson after last night, the defenseman. That won't hurt. That will hurt them. But all things being equal, yeah, they've been in a little bit of a slump scoring wise, but hopefully they'll get things turned around. They hope so.
So let me ask you, how is Vladimir Tarasenko playing?
Oh, not as good as most people thought he would. He is not fit in as well as I thought. And like I said, the other big guys, DeBrincat is doing okay. Kane has been injured, but he had a good game last night. But no, Tarasenko, he's got to step it up.
Okay, Rod, some observations from Motown.
I watched the game last night on TNT, and when I turned it on, it was 5-2. The Wings were leading Philadelphia, and there was just something telling me, don't turn away from this. Don't turn away from this. And then the Flyers came back. It was Philadelphia is a pretty good young team that are flirting with a playoff spot right now. And while I don't care for John Tortorella or his antics, a lot of my hockey friends swear by him. They think he's great. And they almost pulled it off. Hey, George, they came back. Went right down to the wire. But what that showed me last night is Detroit can score when they are focused and put their mind to it. They did last night against Philadelphia. So to be honest, I'm shocked they haven't made a coaching change because they should be better. They do have, in my mind, legit stars. Would you not agree? Mo Sider, would be one. Kane has not really lived up to expectations since signing there. You mentioned Tarasenko.
Lucas Raymond,
the young kid Raymond. Yes, they're not playing to their potential. What happens when that happens? Usually a coach is fired. So I don't know what they're waiting. I'm not advocating for it, but you know what I mean.
Yep.
Well, the only thing I'll say about it is Joel Quenneville's out there, people. He's out there. He's from the Windsor area. If there should be a move made right away, Joel Quenneville should be the Detroit Red Wings coach. I don't understand why they haven't made the move. What do they got to do? Wait till the end of the year and miss the playoffs again? Seriously? Really? I mean, yeah, and yes, Joshua, it was a good game versus the Flyers. Red Wings came away with it. Competitive game. I was watching it. And the Panthers had a good game, 6-1 over the Minnesota Wild last night. But yeah, the late starts are a killer if you're on the East Coast. But that's what happens. The Panthers are getting a lot of their time zone changes out of the way. You won't have to worry about as many, but they have, and they haven't done too badly over the last week. Not going to get into them tonight. We have just too many other things to get to. But as far as the Red Wings, what about their goaltending? You had You had Lions last night. You have Cam Talbot. At some point, you got to wonder when they're going to bring Sebastian Cosa and finally let him see what happens.
Right. He came up for a couple games because of the injuries, and Husso's down. He's not. He's back in Grand Rapids. It's been like because of the injuries, it's been a back and forth kind of thing. But yeah, they need to have steady, consistent goaltending, no question about it. And Stevie Y tried to address that in the offseason. But you're right, Scott. Sebastian Cosa is the one that everybody's hoping for, but he's just not ready. He's just not there yet. He's still in Grand Rapids.
But when is he going to be ready?
That's the problem. Detroit takes a lot, but not always. But a lot of times they take a long time to bring these kids up. But I agree with you. I mean, I think he should be ready by now. But
it takes goalies longer, guys. It takes goalies longer. The Florida Panthers have handled Spencer Knight with kid gloves. Joshua Adore knows that. Their first-round pick from 2020, I believe. It's been 3 years, 2021. He's been up and down. But Cosa led Canada to a World Junior gold medal. Listen, he will be the guy. I watched him in junior. I gotta defend the Red Wings on this. Goalies aren't ready to come up as quickly as guys like a Connor Bedard in Chicago, a forward, and these kinds of guys.
Well, that's fair enough. Okay, give you that. All right, onwards we go. We'll talk about the Lightning part of the broadcast. Steven Stamkos is in an unfamiliar territory. He had 0 8-game losing streaks in 16 seasons with the Tampa Bay Lightning and 29 games with Nashville. He's had 1. Barry Trotz has gone on record saying, no, he has no plans to trade Steven Stamkos. All right, Rod, you followed the situation a little bit closer than most of us. Steve Stamkos, he's not a miracle worker in Nashville. I don't care what anybody says. And he obviously went there thinking, they were a much better team than anticipated. Not the case.
I go on a lot of shows such as this and get asked this a lot about the divorce between the Lightning and Stamkos, which is not what you asked. But I will say this. He's gone. Something happened there that he was not going to come back. The Lightning are stabilizing. They're in a playoff spot. They've won 5 of their last 6 games. The Lightning are fine. And I'm a huge Steven Stamkos fan. We all are. Anybody who's watched him. 16 years in Tampa Bay, won 2 Stanley Cups. They're retiring his number, but it's just not happening. And I defer, again, to you guys' wisdom and experience. You can't just necessarily go to a new team and fit in. Sometimes teams are not a fit for certain skill types, personalities, you name it. I was just in Nashville, as you know, 2 weeks ago, and there was no talk of the Predators. There was signage and everywhere downtown, but there was no talk of Steven Stamkos or of that team. And it's just, I find it kind of odd and fascinating in a way. With my column in the South Florida Tribune, we've been tracking these coaching firings, and we can't believe Detroit hasn't made a move. Derek Lalonde was, in the odds to be fired first. Nashville hasn't made a move. They're second last in the NHL. We can't figure out why. I don't really know what Barry Trotz is doing. He's not going to fire, hey, Trent, he's not going to fire the coach. He's not going to trade Steven Stamkos. I'll defer that Barry Trotz knows what he's doing more than I do. But the coaches that were fired, not too many people saw it coming. Boston, Chicago, St. Louis, not necessarily in that order.
And by the way, Trent Clark is one of my hosts on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Looking forward to having him and George back on when this show continues in January. Trent Clark's a unbelievable guy. Maybe one of these days you'll have an opportunity to meet him, Rod. He's a first-class individual. He's an author like myself as well.
Yeah.
All right, George, what's your take on Steven Stamkos?
We're talking about a Hall of Famer, and to be saddled with a record of 9-17.
Right.
Oh, come on. This is not working out at all for Nashville. They did not anticipate this, I don't believe. Nobody would. But the fact of the matter is that, again, this is another example. You talked about the Rangers. We talked about Detroit and these teams that were supposed to be good, or at least part of the time pretty good, aren't even, especially Nashville's way under 500. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. And obviously, like you said, Rod, the quickest thing is changing coaches and stuff. But that's interesting because, he had that love affair in Tampa. They loved him. He loved them. And then to take this big move and go, and I understand the money's great, but boy, oh boy, it hasn't worked out yet. I'm not sure how it'll work out. but it doesn't look good right now.
Yeah, and it's a mystery because of what you said, Rod. Okay, and that being the fact that the Lightning are having a pretty good season without him,
yeah.
and Nashville isn't doing that well. And at some point, a lot of people thought Stamkos could be headed to Detroit. We all know that none of that came to fruition. All right, Joshua Dorr suggested a topic earlier, and I'm going to get to this one because I really, truly do like it. Yeah, Joshua Dorr says, I hate baseball, but Trent is great on the baseball show, no doubt about it. So now, actually, the Florida Panthers are going to get an outdoor game over at Lone Depot Park. My question to you, Rod, is why didn't they go to Hard Rock Stadium, knowing it's a much bigger venue and it's in Broward on the Broward Dade line, and why did they choose Lone Depot Park? I'm glad the Panthers going to get one. I'll be curious to see how they can pull it off.
I'm no ice making expert, but my suggestion would be they're going to put that ice facility in with the roof closed. And if the climate lends itself to it, they'll open the roof. But if it's hot like this, at Christmas, my God, it's 80, 81 degrees today. It doesn't matter if it's artificial ice. You guys are from up north. You know how natural ice versus artificial ice works. Even artificial ice wouldn't survive in this right now. So my guess is that because there's a retractable roof on Lone Depot Park. I've talked with Panthers people about this. To be honest, they're shocked. They're celebrating. Everybody thought that if there was going to be an outdoor game in Florida, it would go to Tampa because it's just a little bit cooler there. But it's Lone Depot Park, almost the furthest tip of the mainland of the state, and that's where it's going to be. So my guess is because of the retractable roof, Scott. That's my answer. But since that came up at the Board of Governors meetings 2 weeks ago, there's been no statement from the Panthers. So we're all anxiously awaiting that.
I know this stadium all too well. I have covered a lot of Marlins game and really enjoy that ballpark. The only thing I wish about the ballpark is they would have put it somewhere else. But fact of the matter is, they'll actually be able to market the product in Miami, Miami. And once upon a time, the Panthers played at the Miami Arena in Miami before they went to the suburbs. George, any thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, I'm very happy that they're going to be able to get the game because there is a lot of interest in that. I'll tell you one thing you could give Bettman credit for, and that's the outdoor games, the Stadium Series and the
Winter Classics, Outdoor Classics, Heritage Classics.
Winter Classic used to always be New Year's Day, but I know this year it's going to be December 31st, and that's obviously because of the playoffs and football and stuff. But I mean, they're going back to some stadiums again a second time. And Ohio State Stadium, of course, is hosting Detroit and Columbus, which will be a great Stadium Series game. But yeah, I agree with Rod. I think the fact that the dome is there, can be open or closed depending on the weather situation. I think that's probably a big reason why. And Tampa deserves one too. I agree. I mean, it really would have been nice to have them get it first for the reasons that you mentioned. They've had Stanley Cup champions, they've been winners, they've had long franchise history. We know that, but you got a bigger crowd, a bigger draw in Miami area. Let's not kid ourselves with as far as the.
Well, I'll end it on this. Okay, number one, the NHL has a fondness for South Florida. They've had 2 All-Star games here, anyways. They saw what a hit the Stanley Cup Finals has been. Why not give them an outdoor game? So right now, South Florida has an awful lot of momentum in terms of the National Hockey League. So this made it a very easy decision that they were looking for a way to get the game here. And it seemed like Lone Depot Park was the most logical place to put it. I'm sure we'll be talking about this more often, but Joshua mentioned it earlier, and I decided, that is a good idea, especially the last show of the year, and that we had alluded to it in previous episodes, and now we have more clarity on what the nature is. Final topic of the night, though. Let's take the NHL internationally. First Chinese-born player to sign an NHL contract is Kevin He, spelled H-E, by the Winnipeg Jets. He has a 3-year entry-level deal. George, how good is this for international hockey that we finally have a Chinese guy?
Yeah, and I know we've talked about it on other shows and stuff. Can't we come to a day where sometimes we don't have to say the first this, the first that? But the fact of the matter is we don't hear much about hockey in China unless it's in Olympics. Of course, Beijing hosted both the Winter Games and the Summer Games in the Olympics. All that being said, I'm happy for him. I mean, again, he's a pace setter here. We got to see if he can handle the NHL and be a positive impact. There's got to be a lot of other kids there that love hockey, as I'm sure there are. We just don't hear too much about it. So, am I happy for him? Yes, and I think internationally it'll be a great thing if he can succeed, and there can be more Chinese players as well.
Okay, Rod.
I think it's a really good story. Following it enough. I mean, he was born in Beijing, moved to Toronto when he was 6. So he qualifies as a Chinese Canadian, and they wouldn't have signed him if he wasn't able to play. And the Winnipeg Jets, by the way, are the #1 team in the NHL right now. So they are not doing this for any PR purposes or for anything other than hockey purposes. So if it opens the doors to a new market, I'm all for that too. I think it's all good. It's funny you say that, George. The first this for first that. I haven't heard that for a while. So this is the first in a while of the first of something. So bravo to Mr. He.
Yeah, anytime you have a first from a country, it's always great, especially the worldwide. And the NHL's done an outstanding job marketing their product internationally. I mean, this doesn't go back to now. We're talking about those All-Star games, the Canada Cup dating back to the Russians in '72.
Oh yeah.
I think the NHL has done a better job than a lot of the major sports have, including the NFL, only because they've done it longer. They've done it longer. The NFL in the last 20 years or so has gotten a hold of the international market, but all you have to do is the NBA is changing all-star formats because they're desperate to find something that's any good. But when the NHL does it, they're making some pretty good moves. What do you have, this all-star scenario going on, the nations, whatever you call it?
Yep. 4 nations face off.
Yeah, you got that one. And then you had North America against the world. I mean, whenever they come up, and then of course the Olympics. So this is just another indication that the one area for me where the NHL gets it right is on the international stage. They allow their players to play in the Olympics probably a lot more than a lot of other sports. So more power to them. I could sit there and give them a hard time about their numbers and all that, and they're justifiable because all you have to do is look at them on paper. But I will say this, internationally, they get it right. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. How many people these days understand who Borje Salming is? Tommy Bergman. A lot of people don't, okay? But that's going back to the 70s is really what it's going back to in terms of what you have now. Google these guys up. They were the pioneers that ended up bringing in a lot of what you have now. Once upon a time, I heard that Vladislav Tretiak was a team that the Red Wings were a team coveting him, but they couldn't get him over. And of course, I'm not going to get into the international thing, but the reality of the whole situation to me is the NHL has been way ahead of the curve on the
Every team was trying to get Tretiak at one time. But it's funny you say that because the NHL was the first league doing it, followed by, I believe, the NBA en masse, and Yao Ming was the first, foray into China. But I really realized this. I won't call you old timers. How about long-time hockey fans? Will appreciate this. I was sitting at the kitchen table of Theron Fleury 2 or 3 years ago in Calgary, and he was opening fan mail from all over the world and signing cards, and he was going to send them back. And it was the first time I sat there and said, oh my God, they are global stars, the National Hockey League. And you guys, as Detroiters, you with the 90s, Konstantinov, Larionov, Fedorov, I don't need to remind you.
Russian 5, baby.
Exactly. So they did it first. They do it, or did it the best. I'm not sure they're still the best, but
I think
made them a lot of money.
I think our crack research department will show you that. I believe it's Major League Baseball that started the international thing first. They had an all-star team that left after the World Series, and they did that way back in the day. I think they'll probably be the first to go at least international on a trip. But anyways, you're right. I agree with you guys. Scott, right on, man. Spot on. They've done a good job internationally, the NHL. Hats off.
That's one of the best things I think they've ever done. I think they laid out the groundwork for everybody to say overseas you can get talent. And when you can get overseas talent to complement what you already have, what do you have in this particular situation? More better players. You got more teams, but you got better talent and a bigger feeding system and a pipeline so the teams can win championships.
That's what I meant. Yeah, not in a marketing vein, but welcoming global players into your league. Sergei
Gotcha.
Makarov was the first in the late 80s with the Flames, right? And then it just opened the floodgates to all these stars.
Vaslav Nedomansky, remember him?
Oh, yeah. Great names. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of these days we'll do a show talk about the foreign influence, but right now is a perfect opportunity to get it in, especially with our buddy Kevin He, who obviously has led to our wheels turning to talk about how outstanding the NHL has been in terms of the foreign market. More power to him. You really, I mean, I remember many years ago when everybody loved the Philadelphia Flyers, right, for beating the Red Army team. Oh my gosh, I've never been a bigger Philadelphia Flyers fan in my life, knowing that the Russians came here and humiliated everybody. But now they got beat up by the Philadelphia Flyers. In fact, I have a VHS on that, and I think that was called Conflict of the Night. It's one of the best games I've ever seen. And you want to talk about a more unifying, and I repeat, unifying game for the All Americans to be. That was an unbelievable game. But we'll go on and on. I just think that bringing up Kevin He and the Chinese born just certainly led to a lot of great ideas here as well. Great show tonight. Obviously, we'll be back here on January 9th. Thursday is our preferred date to do this. Unfortunately, with the holidays and the Christmas parties lately, we've had to move Rod around a little bit Monday and Thursday. We appreciate the fact that Rod Peterson has been a sport about us moving around a little bit. We really do. But when you're just trying to do everything you can to get a show in a lineup, our goal is to keep continuity. And we have a building block with the hockey show. And I expect Rod and I and George and occasionally Mark Mayer and I to be able to continue to build it as we go into 2025. To tell you that Rod Peterson has been one of the biggest pickups we've had all year would be mildly stating the obvious. The guy's unbelievable, but I have a lot of big expectations going into 2025. So this is a good building block. We appreciate the audience that we're attracting, but we have a lot more work ahead of us. So with that said, okay, Candy Ebling, why don't you give us another station break before we wrap it up? I should also point out that Fire Up will be after this particular show. So you can join George, Jeremy Ballrick, and Pensman along with Candy in the Country Club. All right, give us a station break, Andy.
Station break for the non-country club. You are listening to the South Florida Tribune Publishing Company. We published a book late last year, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by your host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth, and the foreword was written by George Eichhorn. Talks about Scott's 40-plus years in the industry and how it has changed. All kinds of great sports stories. Get your copy today. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Apple and Google Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there's a link to our merchandise store where you can get hat, t-shirts, sweatpants, whatever you want. Go check out that as well. And then check out the plethora of all kinds of great content we have on that website. In fact, the three fine gentlemen on this broadcast tonight all write for us. So go check out their writing. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Monday nights baseball, Tuesday nights football, Wednesday and Thursday nights. Never know what we're going to be talking about. If you want to be a guest on a show or have ideas, email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, you can call Scott 954-304-4941. I just want to say thank you to all you fine gentlemen for putting on such a great show, including you, Scott. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year. And then a special shout out to Scott because he will be having a birthday on the 29th. And our wedding anniversary is on New Year's Day as well. So happy anniversary and happy birthday, my love.
Thank you, Candy. Appreciate you. And Joshua Dorr, you know what? I got to tell you this. To be objective as I am in this industry, okay, you were a one-man wrecking crew in the chat, and this might be one of your best animated performances tonight. So Joshua Dorr, got to give you credit. You end the year on a pretty strong note. So, I like to give the guy a hard time, but I'm going to tell you one thing about this guy. He's loyal, he's dedicated, and he continues to come on, and he does know his hockey stuff. But I welcome the opportunity to have him come on and be a foursome with us. I really would. This guy's a diamond in the rough on the air. We just need to get him on here. But if he wants to make havoc in the chat room, so be it. And Blows, 44 years in the business, will turn 45 on the 29th. But I'm glad that you're thinking along those lines. What a show we've had tonight. With that said, George Eichhorn, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
Okay, you can find me on the South Florida Tribune site under the Motor City Tribune, where I'm a contributing writer. And you can follow me on X, on Twitter at SanGSports99. I'm also on LinkedIn under my name, George Eichhorn, and then also G. Eichhorn at yahoo.com. You can reach me anytime. I'm looking forward to the baseball show resuming in January and these great hockey shows with my friends Scott and Rod. Glad to be part of it and looking forward to it after our holiday break, and wishing everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Rod. All right, Rod, put it all out there. You're involved in a lot, so make sure you don't miss a thing, because if you do, I will make sure it gets in there. Go ahead, Rod.
First and foremost, as the man George Eichhorn just said, the South Florida Tribune, my weekly column, go to the affiliators writings, contributors writings. Drop down bar is there. And we're all there, contributors writing. So South Florida Tribune, I'm so proud of being part of the team here. I do the daily Rod Peterson show on Game Plus Television nationally across Canada and 32 U.S. states. It's carried on Game Plus TV. Just look up at Rod Peterson on all social media platforms. Give it a follow, and you can follow it from there. And I just want to tell Santa where he can get a hold of me. It's in Boca Raton, Florida, Boca East, because I want him to find me with the South Florida Tribune hat. Maybe a sweatshirt, but definitely a hat, because they look so good. That's where I want Santa to find me with down my chimney.
Don't worry about it. We'll make it work. I got you a book, didn't I? By the way, how far are you into that book now that you brought up the hat?
Same as the last time we talked. Still going.
So I guess in the Canadian jargon of way you pronounce words, you're making no progress.
Getting there. Next week we're going to the Keys, and I'll have plenty of time for book reading down there. So I'm looking forward to it. It's fantastic book.
More power to you. That's okay. It's a great place. I love the Keys every time I get an opportunity to go there. But now, Rod, you've been a great addition, and we have a lot more things ahead of us.
Thanks, guys.
We really do. So with that said, everybody, Fire Up is coming up. So we want to, on behalf of George Eichhorn, Rod Peterson, my name is Scott Morgan, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange. We'll be back in about 2 weeks, but I want to point out that even though we'll be gone for the holidays, we will be putting up a lot of old shows out there for you to go out there and view as well. So we may be out of sight a little bit, but we won't be out of it because we're going to be putting up other archives. Rod's columns continue to come in. These are outstanding. The guy does an unbelievable job giving you the NHL scoop, and that's what he's done a really remarkable job doing. So, George, we'll be ready to hop on over to the other show. Rod, I look forward to seeing you and Coach Serena in the next couple of weeks, but great job tonight, and we have a lot
Merry
more to
Christmas.
look forward to.
Season's greetings, everybody.
All right, good night, everybody.
Good night.